Look, How to Train Your Dragon was one of the GOATs of my childhood, and I do not care how much of it is just being carried by its music. As a kid, I bought this movie's merch, I watched all the TV shows, and even considered reading the books it's based on. While the other kids were hyping up Blue Pocahontas, I was repping Horse Girl Movie for boys. This trilogy, it was amazing. The first film, while a very basic plot, soared with amazing visuals, performances, and even if it's a little jank by today's standards, I rewatched it for a certain video that I'm making, and yeah, it still holds up. So naturally, being the super fan that I am, I was dreading the fuck out of watching this live action adaptation. As yeah, the trend of taking beloved classics and remaking them but worse, has been a plague that I got tired of immediately. So when I first heard that Universal was trying again to ride the wave Disney created, it made me not hold my breath for this film. I didn't care how much the publicity kept telling us like, oh yeah, this was a story worth revisiting. It didn't matter to me that they got the original director and writer to helm this project, as yeah, we already have the original. Why would we watch an imitation? What could I possibly gain from watching a remake? And the answer is a pretty decent time.
Let's kill him!
Now, let me explain before I get crucified. How to Train Your Dragon is a story of a boy named Hiccup, who, tired of being treated as an embarrassment by his tribe and father, aspires to one day be a dragon hunter. One day, thanks to his skills as an inventor, he is able to knock down and capture a Night Fury, the most mysterious and dangerous of all dragons. But despite having everything to gain by killing it, and being hailed as a legend by his tribe, gaining the parental approval he so long craved, Hiccup, in a moment of empathy, frees the creature, naming it Toothless, and beginning a forbidden friendship that would change the fate of the world, with Hiccup now torn between his friend and his family. This is a plot of the original film, and it's basically E.T. with dragons. While basic and zero surprises, it still manages to work. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, which might as well have been the motto for this remake. As this adaptation is basically a remaster, the dialogue is almost exactly the same. The shots are one-for-one recreations. Even the mannerisms of the characters feel like they were lifted straight from the original and used to direct the actors. This film is without a doubt the most faithful live-action remake we have ever gotten. For better, and there's not really a worst here, but we're gonna put a little asterisk on that. But to be honest, I actually haven't seen most or really any of the Disney live-action remakes. I've consumed a lot of videos talking about them, but the gist I've been able to gather is that Disney's philosophy when it comes to these adaptations seems to be recreating the iconic moments, then overcorrecting from every criticism the internet has ever had towards those movies. And in between all of that, there also seems to be like, okay, the team making this can try and change some things in like, you know, give it a slightly fresh experience for new and old fans, even though in practice this hasn't been working. But in theory, this does create a bit of novelty. You know it's going to be something familiar, but it might have some dented bells and whistles to make it feel different enough. In contrast, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is effectively just rewatching the original. Sure, it's in live action and it's about 30 minutes longer, but I never actually had a bad time watching it. It hits a lot of the same highs, avoids some of the lows, and that slight eeriness of just how close these two films are, just it goes away by the midpoint of the movie. The flying sections are still exhilarating, the friendship between Hiccup and Toothless is still adorable, and I think all the changes with one exception either add to the film or don't take away enough to be a real issue. All the actors here did a fantastic job. The new kid they got for Hiccup is like, he's just Hiccup. From how he walks to how he talks to like that clear sense of exasperation, the dude nails it. And while he may not have Jay Baruchel's like perfect comedic timing, I actually think Mason Thames really owns this role like with his facial expressions. When he's allowed to break free from the mold of the animated film, he is honestly at his best, conveying a sense of neurotic charm that feels like Hiccup without having to just copy him. In fact, my only nitpick about Thames is that I think, and I might be crazy here, but I think he's too conventionally good looking for the first film. In the second one, yeah, sure, perfect. We all remember that glow up, but for movie one, I would have liked to see someone just a little bit more awkward looking or give him just a little bit of a babyface. But that's personal preference. I think all the actors overall did good jobs at embodying their characters. They are all the cartoons come to life, with even the most radically different take just amounting to a different flavor for the same meal. In this case, taking style out from a vain frat guy to a more clearly insecure kid who is desperate for attention. But out of everyone, the easy standout of this film is Gerard Butler as Stoic. Again.
I've never met a person in my life who did not love How to Train Your Dragon.
Gonna be honest with you guys, every time I started to think one of the actors was doing a really good job, Gerard Butler would come in and immediately remind me what a great performance looks like. Stoic commands every scene that he is in, with even the new additions feeling seamless. You never feel like Gerard is annoyed at having to reprise this role, or is just doing it for the paycheck. Dude seems to be having the time of his life, and I couldn't imagine anyone else doing a better job than him. He fucking kills it. And while I'm still giving praise, the set design for this movie, really good. It is such a weird thing to take the look and design of Burke, turn it into real life, and have that feel normal, natural, like really lived in. But they accomplish it here, just like they accomplish it with the dragons. I was worried we were in for some uncanny valley monstrosities, as while some things can be weird and cute in animated form, having the same bulbous heads could turn out to be night fuel in real life. The final product looks surprisingly solid, even did come at the cost of some of their personality. Honestly, I think my biggest hot take for this film is that I almost like the design of the final boss dragon more in the live action version, as while chonkier, it feels like the more appropriate appearance for a dragon that does nothing but sit around and eat all day. Plus, the design of its face really gives a sense that this is a Godzilla-sized Drake versus a really big dragon like in the original. This film is full of small adjustments like that, little things here and there that either help it or aren't really an issue. The biggest improvement being the sidekicks. As with all this extra time, when I'm with them, I no longer feel like taking a bath with my toaster. This just is what it is. I like these characters in the show, but the movies never found a way to make these chuckle fucks feel like a worthwhile addition to the cast. Here though, they still aren't great, and some of the new lines and angles fall flat, but I think there's enough new stuff here, not to mention them being diluted by extra time, makes it so they are not as much of a drag as they were in the original. Personally, I think Style Out is the biggest beneficiary of all this, as he gets his own mini side plot with his dad, which provided the biggest and saddest laughs I had the entire series. But the only place my goodwill for these additions stops being with Astrid. Skip to here if you want to avoid spoilers, as I'm about to ruin someone's day. Okay, ready? I think the story slightly drops a ball when it comes to Astrid, and it baffles me in how, in trying to give her more focus, it ended up making her less impactful as a character. Effectively, this film feels like it wants to apologize for how badly Astrid got sidelined in the original trilogy, trapping her in side plots that only serve to highlight her as Hiccup's girlfriend, not the fierce and determined leader who dominated their dragon training. Like, I'm certain if we get a second film, Astrid is gonna be the one who becomes the chief instead of Hiccup, which frankly is what should have happened in the first place, as Hiccup becoming a man didn't have to be fused with him becoming the leader. He's an explorer and inventor. Let him be the explorer and the inventor. But the way they try and set up this arc for Astrid and the new additions to her character all suffer from how the story is willing to make small changes but can't bring itself to change too much. Astrid in the beginning of this film hates Hiccup, in contrast to the original where she never directly bullies him till he starts getting in her way during dragon training. Here, she's talking shit, having a chip on her shoulder about how he's privileged by being the chief's son, with it annoying her that his screw-ups haven't been punished more, and that he might become chief based on his blood while she had to fight and work for everything. Now, these additions, these changes, they aren't the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't even call them bad directions to expand Astrid's character, but they all just ended up falling flat. Her belittling Hiccup doesn't really work, as this direct antagonism is coupled with the same resolution we get in the original. She was made to hate him a lot more, making it feel like they need to do more to earn Astrid just immediately kissing him. For it wasn't like antagonism, you can read it as her just not caring about Hiccup. You couldn't even really say she was friends with the kids who were actually bullying him, leaving just enough ambiguity to make the beginning of this relationship not feel so jarring. It feels like after all that had happened, they need to cut that first kiss and just leave the one at the end, and then like, okay, we'll call it there. But instead, they have to hit the same two beats as like, no, we need to do a little little bit more before we get to this point. And speaking of doing a little bit more, Astrid being mad at Hiccup for being privileged also doesn't work for me, as yeah, he is the son of the chief, but Stoic knows his son sucks. He will admit to that shit in front of the entire village, with it never feeling like in the actual movie, Hiccup is given a pass for anything by just being Stoic's son. We get the village being damaged at the beginning, but we never made it feel like, okay, the other kids have to pick up Hiccup's slack, hence the resentment. I feel like we kind of needed that, as the rest of the sidekicks are still massive fuck-ups. So while Hiccup may have had some incidents in the past, he doesn't feel any worse than the other kids for the rest of the film after the 10-minute mark. He may be the teacher's pet, but Hiccup isn't treated any better. And this makes it so like this new direction they're trying to take Astrid's character, this resentment, isn't being built on anything. With her wanting to be the chief and being the real leader never amounting to anything more than lip service. And this is probably my favorite example of this. The story will say Astrid will lead us, only for the scene to end with Hiccup saying, "Follow me." It really feels like this story wants to do more with Astrid, but can't bring itself to change the story in any meaningful way, leaving all her new stuff to feel half-baked and undercutting her scenes in the latter half of the movie. Again, I think if they do a second film, they might actually commit to making way bigger changes, and hopefully this will all pay off, but as it stands, I feel they could have handled all this a little bit better, especially after all the hate Nico Parker got for landing this role. And all the worst people are mad that she wasn't blonde. So for her to be given the most flawed writing, just come on, let's do this girl some favors. End of the day, I think it's safe to say that I did enjoy this film. I appreciate the vision of the original being respected. The visuals and the actors are all doing great jobs, making me content to tell people that if they want to see this remake, I can easily recommend it, even though I personally will never watch it again. Oh yeah, here's the pivot. See, here's the thing. This movie is just How to Train Your Dragon again. This film is not a train wreck, it doesn't botch the original, but for the life of me, I can't really justify to myself watching this again, as I just have a shorter version sitting on my PC at home. This remake doesn't need to exist, and while I get some novelty out of seeing the new graphics and what was adjusted, I didn't get much more out of it than just watching the animated version, and I think I sadly know the reason why, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's too much like the original. Take this from someone who enjoys going to the theater. Seeing different adaptations of stories you've seen before isn't always a bad thing, as while all the dialogue may be the same, each actor is still allowed to bring their own thing to the role versus mimicking what has already been done. There's a joy to be found in watching someone find a way to put a new spin on the familiar, a new take, or a way of breathing life into a role that has been done for hundreds of years. How to Train Your Dragon 2025, while far from a bad time at the theaters, from how the actors are directed, how it's shot, this just feels like the same experience that I had before. And that makes me think that yeah, kids will enjoy this much as I did when I was little. But for me, I don't really see myself rewatching it again, as it's so fateful there's no real benefits. I can see people saying Stoic is better here than he was in the first, that he and Hiccup's dynamics shine a little bit more, but for what it does better, it's always by an inch, never a mile. So call me content. That itch has been scratched. I'll be happy to just sit at home and re-listen to that soundtrack, as those horns are truly divine. Alright, that's gonna be it for me. Let me know what you all thought of the new How to Train Your Dragon. Was it everything you imagined? How are you doing on this version of remake? If you had to pick your poison, would you choose this or whatever the fuck Disney has been doing for the last 15 years? I'm genuinely curious if you prefer Trainwreck over Fateful, as I do believe that is a debate worth having. Also remember to like, share, and subscribe, as that's just what you say.